My name is Lauren German. Tonight, like most nights since I came to Cannes, I was sitting alone at a small cafe near the busy JW Marriott Cannes. It's nothing like the rich and fancy life I grew up with. But after finishing college in the America, all I wanted was a simple break. My dad owns a lot of things, hotels, tech companies, you name it. But I used my mom's last name to keep things low-key and avoid attention. The night air was getting cooler when he walked in.
Paul.
He acted like he owned the place, or at least like he believed he did. He walked over with the kind of confidence people have when they wear suits more expensive than most people's rent. Without even asking, he pulled out the chair across from me and sat down. "Mind if I sit?" he finally said, already settled. His smile was smooth, like he had practiced it in the mirror. "Looks like you already are," I said, not even looking up from my coffee. He chuckled, the sound too perfect. "I'm Paul. And you are?" "Lauren," I replied quickly, giving him a fast look. He wasn't my usual type, too neat, too perfect. But I had to admit, he was good-looking. "So, Lauren," he said, leaning in a little, "what's a girl like you doing at a pricey spot like this, all alone?" His voice had a playful edge. I couldn't tell if it annoyed me or made me laugh. "Just enjoying my coffee," I said, not giving away much. "What about you?" "I could say business," he replied, "but that would be a lie. Tonight, I'm just looking for something interesting. And I think I might have found it." He stared right at me. I raised an eyebrow. "Well, I hope the coffee lives up to your high hopes," I said. Paul laughed. "Something tells me it already has." I wasn't here to make friends. And I was definitely not looking for a quick romance. "I'm not one of those girls who fall for cheesy lines," I said. "If that's what you're trying, it won't work. And I'm not interested in whatever game you're playing." "Who says I'm playing a game?" he asked, his voice a bit softer now. "Experience," I replied. "You sit down without asking, start with a smooth line, and probably expect a phone number or a date." He leaned back and smiled like he was honestly amused. "You're tough, I like that. I'm not looking for your number. Just a conversation. But if that's too much, just say the word, and I'll disappear." I looked at him for a second. Ken was beautiful, but it could also feel lonely. Maybe a short chat wouldn't hurt. "Talking is fine," I said. "But let's keep it casual." We ended up chatting for a while, and it was easier than I thought. He didn't ask personal questions, and I didn't offer any. As the night went on, I realized I was actually enjoying it. Paul wasn't like the usual guys who tried to impress me with money or big connections. He seemed used to luxury, but he didn't make it a big deal. Eventually, the air got cooler, and it was time to leave. "Well, Paul, this turned out to be nicer than I expected," I said as I stood up. "Surprised yourself, huh?" he asked with a grin. "Maybe just a little. Good night, Paul." As I walked back to my apartment, his words stayed in my mind. Ken really was full of surprises. And maybe, just maybe, I'd found one tonight. After meeting Paul that night, the evenings in Cannes felt a little less lonely. He had a way of showing up wherever I went. Whether I was walking through a market during the day or having dinner alone at night, he seemed to always appear. But strangely, I didn't mind. Maybe it was because he wasn't pushy. He didn't try too hard. He just seemed happy to be around me. One breezy evening, as I watched the sunset, Paul came over with 2 coffees in his hands. He sat next to me without saying a word. "Just assumed I wanted coffee?" I asked with a raised eyebrow. He handed me a cup. "If I'm wrong, I'll drink both." "Good guess then," I said, taking it. We sat quietly for a while, the sound of the waves filling the silence. "You never told me what you do back in the States," Paul finally said. "Didn't think it was important," I replied. I shrugged. "I work, but right now I'm just enjoying not working."
He laughed.
"Fair enough. But everyone has a story, don't you think?" Over the next few days, Paul and I settled into a comfortable routine. He showed me parts of Cannes I hadn't seen before. We talked about everything and nothing: movies, books, favorite foods. He loved arguing about which Leonardo DiCaprio actor was best. He was a big fan of Paul Wesley, while I preferred the old-school charm of Brad Pitt. One day, while we were walking along the beach, Paul suddenly stopped. He looked at me in a serious way, I hadn't seen before. Lauren, I know I'm just a guy you met at a cafe, he said, but these past few weeks have felt different. Better because of you. I stopped too, unsure of what to say. I hadn't planned on catching feelings while I was here. Paul, I like spending time with you, I really do. But this is just a break for me. I'm not looking for anything complicated. He nodded slowly and took a deep breath. I understand. No pressure. I just want you to know I'm here, and I think you're pretty amazing. Days turned into weeks, and my time in Kim was almost over. Paul and I kept spending more time together. What started as casual chats and walks became late-night dinners and early morning breakfasts. Falling for someone under the stars wasn't part of the plan, but it happened. Then one evening, Paul surprised me with something big. Come back with me, Lauren. Work at my company in the States. I know it's sudden, but I feel like this could really work. The idea was wild, totally unexpected, but part of me was curious. I was tempted by the adventure, by the thought of seeing where this could go. Going back to the States with him felt like jumping into a completely different life. Paul's offer wasn't just about a job. It was like an open door into his world. Before I knew it, I was living in a simple apartment in a regular neighborhood, playing the part of a normal girl who just got lucky. But my dad had other thoughts about what normal meant. He showed up one afternoon without warning, just as I was unpacking my last box. His loud laugh filled my tiny living room as he stood in the doorway, larger than life. Lauren, hiding in plain sight, huh? He said, pulling me into a hug that nearly crushed me. So, tell me about this choice. This guy must be really special if you dropped everything and moved like this. His voice was calm, even playful, but I knew he was checking things out, doing his job as a dad, making sure I wasn't walking into trouble. I let out a sigh and sat down on the couch. His name is Paul.
He's different, Dad.
He doesn't know about all of this, I said, waving my hand around, hinting at the money and all the complicated stuff that came with it. Dad sat next to me, his face turning serious. Lauren, you know you can't hide that forever. If he's going to be part of your life, he deserves to know who you really are. I know, Dad. I just want to be sure about him before I make things more complicated. He smiled and gently messed up my hair like he used to when I was a little girl. Always here for you, kiddo. Just remember, if you ever need anything, I'm only a phone call away. And don't forget, I've got eyes everywhere, he added with a wink. The next few weeks were a blur as I adjusted to my new job and new life. Paul was always around, supportive, kind, and just as charming as before. But I could see a slight change in him too. There was a seriousness now, a weight that came from all the work and responsibility he had. One night, while we were having a quiet dinner at my place, Paul brought up something I had been trying to avoid. Lauren, when do you think I'll meet your parents? I feel like there's a part of your life I haven't seen. I froze for a second. The question hit me harder than I thought it would. Well, my mom passed away a long time ago, I said softly. And my dad, he's just a regular truck driver. We're not really talking right now. Paul frowned, looking a little worried. I'm sorry to hear that. But when you're ready, I'd really like to meet him. Family matters. I nodded, thankful for how he handled it. But deep down, I knew the truth about my dad's world, and I wasn't ready to bring Paul into that just yet. Life with Paul moved faster than I expected. We were already becoming part of each other's daily routines. My job at his company was going well, and we were growing closer as a couple. It all felt like we were heading towards something big. But even then, I wasn't prepared when that big moment finally arrived. It was a normal evening. We were at his apartment, modern and cozy, with a beautiful view of the city lights. We had just finished dinner, nothing special, just some takeout since neither of us felt like cooking. We were sitting on the couch, a documentary about ocean animals playing in the background, the kind you put on but don't really pay attention to. Then Paul turned to me. His face looked more serious than the moment called for. He held my hand, and suddenly, my heart started beating faster. Lauren, he said, I've been thinking about us. About everything we've been through, and everything I want for our future. I nodded, my mouth suddenly dry. I love you, Lauren. I love everything about you. I can't imagine my life without you, he said. He paused, and I saw him swallow hard, like he was nervous. Honestly, I was just as nervous. I want to be with you forever. Will you marry me?
Just like that.
No getting down on one knee, no ring box, just honest and real. So very Paul. Yes, I said. The word came out quickly, like a weight had been lifted. Yes, I will. He smiled that big, warm smile that I had fallen for the very first day, and hugged me tightly. We spent the rest of the evening talking about our future, what we wanted, where we saw ourselves. It was exciting and a little scary, but it felt right. The next challenge was telling my dad. I thought he'd be happy, but instead, he looked concerned. Lauren, you know I only want you to be happy, he said. But are you sure about this? Everything's happening so fast. I'm sure, Dad. He's a good man. You'll see, I said, trying to sound more confident than I really was.
He sighed. All right.
But promise me one thing, sign a prenup. Just to be safe. The word prenup didn't bother me. It was just part of marriage these days, especially when one or both people had a lot to protect. Even though Paul didn't know the full truth about my background, I understood my dad's concern. Of course, Dad. We'll take care of it, I said. That's good. And Lauren, he paused for a moment. I won't be at the wedding. I don't want to ruin your story of being a simple girl. Then came the part one was nervous about, meeting Paul's mom. Her welcome was cold from the very beginning. During dinner at their family home, she stared at me with a look that could freeze the air. Paul, are you sure about this girl? She asked sharply. She doesn't seem like the right match for our family. Paul tried to calm things down, but his mother wouldn't stop. A prenuptial agreement is not optional, she said firmly. I didn't argue. I agreed right away, knowing it would help ease the situation. Of course. I wouldn't have it any other way, I said. Later, we met with a lawyer and signed the prenup. Despite all the bumps along the way, our wedding in New Zealand was like a dream. I stood next to Paul, the ocean whispering behind us, the warm sand beneath our feet, and everything felt perfect. I felt a wave of hope. It was just the two of us, our love, and a future we were ready to build together. Even though things had been tough with our families at first, married life started better than I ever imagined. Paul and I moved into our new home, a beautiful house with way more space than we needed. It was meant to be the start of our perfect life together. I jumped back into work, determined to show everyone that I was more than just the boss's wife. My job had always been challenging, but now there were even more expectations. I wasn't just managing projects, I was now part of the big decisions too. At first, Paul seemed proud. He would introduce me in meetings with a smile and say, "This is Lauren, my wife and our project lead." But over time, something began to change. It started small. A few strange comments, little remarks here and there. One night at dinner, Paul brought it up. "You're doing really well at work," he said. "Maybe too well." I looked up from my plate, confused. "What do you mean? Isn't that good for the company?" "It is," he said, moving his food around with his fork. "But some of the guys are saying it's starting to feel like the Lauren show over there." His words stung. "That's not fair. I thought you'd be happy the company is doing well." "I am," he said, "but it's a lot. Everyone's always talking about you and how you run things. Makes me wonder where I fit in." That was the first of many talks like that. As the company grew, and I kept doing well, the tension between us also grew. Paul, who had once cheered me on, now seemed bothered by my success. It got worse when his mother came to stay with us for a few weeks. Her old-fashioned views brought a cold air into our home. She made comments that I'd always managed to avoid hearing. "You're always at the office, Lauren. When do you have time to take care of your husband?" she'd say. I tried to ignore her and stay calm, but her words made the distance between Paul and me even bigger. No matter how well I was doing at work, it felt like nothing I did could fix what was breaking at home. The more I succeeded at my job, the more our marriage seemed to fall apart. Then one evening, Paul came home with a hard look on his face. "Lauren, I think it's best if you leave the company," Paul said. "We need to focus on our family, and it feels like your job is causing too much stress." "Leave the company?" Why? I asked, my voice full of shock and frustration. I've worked so hard. I've done so much. It's for the best, he said, brushing it off. You can focus on the house, maybe even start that garden you always talked about. He said it like it was no big deal, like my career meant nothing. The next day, things got worse. I found out Paul had fired all our house staff, the cleaners, the cooks, the gardeners. Everyone. You wanted to be more involved at home, he said coldly. Now's your chance. I didn't mind doing housework, but the way he suddenly forced it on me felt wrong. This wasn't the caring man I married. This man seemed harsh and controlling. His mother, who was still staying with us, seemed to enjoy it all. It's good for a wife to take care of her home, she said with a little smirk, especially when Paul talked about my new role as a full-time housewife. As I tried to adjust to this sudden change in my life, I felt something I didn't expect. Shame. Shame that I didn't see this coming. Shame that maybe my father had been right about Paul all along. Later, Paul suggested we take a trip to Canada to try and bring some joy back into our marriage. I wasn't sure, but I agreed, hoping it might help. That hope disappeared quickly when his mother said she would come too. It's been so long since I've traveled, she announced loudly, like no one could argue with her. Paul welcomed her with open arms, not once asking how I felt about it. We rented a small house in Cannes. It was pretty but expensive, and instead of feeling like a vacation, it felt more like a trap. From day one, Paul and his mother treated the trip like their personal getaway. They rented fancy cars, shopped at high-end stores, and ate at expensive restaurants. Meanwhile, I was stuck at the house. They expected me to cook every meal and keep everything clean, like I was just their maid. I didn't feel like a wife. I felt like a servant in a fancy holiday home. Each day, Paul's mother made meaner comments. Her voice got sharper, her words nastier. Must be nice, living off someone else, she said one day, sneering at me. Her words felt like a slap covered in a fake smile. Paul never stood up for me. He just laughed along with her. And that laugh, it felt like a betrayal. Every time, it echoed through the cold walls of that house, reminding me that the man I once loved was slipping further and further away. I felt completely alone. The beauty of the city no longer felt magical. It was hidden behind the cold looks and harsh words from Paul and his mother. One evening, we walked past a large, old-fashioned hotel. It looked grand and full of history, like a place where people were respected and treated with class. Paul's mother, her voice full of jealousy, said, "Lucky billionaire Brian. Imagine owning a place like that, living like a king." Later that night, we went to a restaurant with a beautiful view of the sea. But any peace I had left was about to break. As we sat down, she called the waiter with a sharp wave of her hand. Then, loud enough for nearby tables to hear, she said, "For Lauren, the cheapest meal will do. No point wasting money on someone who doesn't deserve it." Paul laughed. Not just with his voice, but with a lazy wave of his hand, he added, "Good call, Mom. Let's not go overboard." I felt ashamed, like everyone in the restaurant was staring. I stood up, the sound of my chair scraping the floor matching the storm inside me. I looked straight at them and, with my voice louder than I meant, said, "I won't take this anymore. I'm divorcing you, Paul." The night air was cold, but nothing compared to the chill of betrayal as I walked away. Instead of stopping me or apologizing, Paul and his mother followed behind, shouting insults. As I walked faster, I heard his mother shout clearly, "Look at her. A beggar, not good enough for my son." My heart was racing. Before I could get far, Paul ran up behind me and grabbed my purse. His fingers tightened around it. "This is my money, Lauren. Go ahead, crawl out of here if you have to," he said coldly, pulling the purse from my shoulder and leaving me frozen in shock. His mother laughed loudly, her eyes full of cruelty. "Maybe now you'll learn to beg in Cannes. That's all you're good for." Their laughter echoed down the street as I stood there, lost and alone. But then, something unexpected happened. We were near that same grand hotel Paul's mother had admired earlier. She pointed at it, mocking me. "Maybe they'll let you in as a beggar." Just then, The large gates of the hotel opened, and a guard stepped out. He looked in my direction, and suddenly his face lit up with recognition. "Miss Bryan," he called out warmly, walking toward me with a respectful salute. The second he said my name, everything changed. Paul and his mother froze. Their smug smiles vanished, replaced with shock and confusion. The guards smiled warmly. "Your father told us you might stop by. Please, this way. The best room is always saved for you," as Mr. Bryan instructed. Paul's mother went pale. Her confident tone disappeared. "H. Bryan? As in billionaire Bryan?" she stammered, her voice shaking. I didn't say a word to them. I simply walked toward the guard, my back straight, my steps calm. "Thank you, Timothy," I said, keeping my voice steady and strong. Inside, I felt both relieved and proud. Behind me, I heard Paul calling, his voice filled with panic. "Lauren, please, I didn't mean it like that." His mother quickly added, trying to sound polite, "Maybe we could come in? Just for a quick drink." I didn't turn around. I walked into the hotel, the doors closing behind me like a final goodbye to all the pain and drama I was leaving behind. Timothy led me to the reception, where the staff greeted me with the kind of respect you give to the daughter of the hotel's owner. I felt seen and respected. The flight back to the America gave me time to think about what to do next. By the time I landed, I had made up my mind. I was no longer that quiet, unsure woman. I was ready to stand strong. The next day, I sat in a lawyer's office. Papers were spread across the desk like pieces of a battle plan. "During your time at the company," the lawyer said, "it looks like your husband never paid you the bonuses you earned from the major deals you closed. We're talking about multi-million-dollar contracts." "That sounds about right," I said with a sigh, thinking of all the hard work I had done, the long hours, the stress, the results I delivered. "We're suing for $5 million, the lawyer said firmly. The courtroom was cold and quiet, a big difference from the angry looks Paul kept throwing my way. He stood there trying to defend himself, but it was weak. The man I once loved now looked small and lost. When the judge ruled in my favor, awarding me the full $5 million, Paul's face fell apart. Outside the courthouse, he made one last attempt. "Lauren, everyone's laughing at me. I made a mistake. Can we try again?" Once those words might have made me stop. But not anymore. "You don't miss me, Paul. You miss the money," I said sharply. "Next time, maybe don't listen to your mother so much." Then I turned and walked away, the sound of my heels on the pavement telling the world that this part of my life was officially over. When I got home, my father was waiting. The air between us felt heavy, like so much was left unsaid. Finally, I broke the silence. "Dad, I should have listened to you," I said quietly. He pulled me into a hug, warm and full of love. "You had to learn on your own," he said gently. "Now you understand. And that's the first step." We talked late into the night about life, the mistakes we make, and starting over. His words gave me hope and helped me see a new path ahead. After that talk, I felt inspired. I started planning my next move. My time at Paul's company had helped me sharpen my skills, and more importantly, it made me realize how much I enjoyed the work. I had found something I truly cared about. So I decided to open my own investment firm. With the knowledge I had and the money I received from the divorce, I finally had the tools to build something real. Something that belonged to me. Weeks turned into months as I worked hard to build my business from scratch. There were tough moments, and the work wasn't easy. But every problem taught me something new. Every win reminded me I was heading in the right direction. One day, as I sat in my office looking out at the busy streets below, it all became clear. I had come a long way, from a sad, lonely wife in a broken marriage to a strong, confident woman running her own business. The journey hadn't been easy, but every challenge had made me stronger.